1 year ago, Nebraska's 2024 recruiting class was perceived as one of the greatest Husker cycles we've seen in the past decade. And because of that, last offseason was hyped up to say the least around a certain five-star quarterback, a bunch of four-star recruits who were expected to play immediately, and a plethora of talented other players. So in today's video, 1 year later, it's finally time to revisit that same 2024 recruiting class. We're going to go over a bunch of players who were hyped up and didn't necessarily meet those expectations in year ones, guys who did play as a true freshman, guys who were redshirted, some players you probably forgot about, and so much more. So we're going to go over every single one of these guys, the outlook on the future, and an overall grade on that 2024 recruiting class looking back on it. So really quick, we have a lot to get into. Hit that like button. It really helps me out. Also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan, you're unsubscribed, what are you waiting for? This is the only channel on YouTube where you're going to get daily Nebraska football content all offseason long from now to next season. So please hit that subscribe button, join the best family here in Husker YouTube for exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. But without further ado, let's get into it reviewing Nebraska's 2024 recruiting class, going over every single one of these prospects, players that you probably forgot about, guys who were hyped up and didn't live up to it, guys who weren't hyped up and then played as true freshmen, and so much more. Let's just get it rolling. So Nebraska had the 22nd ranked class going into that 2024 cycle, had 11 4-stars, Nebraska's most in over a decade. And again, it was a very, very successful class. Matt Rhule's second being at Nebraska. Let's get things started, of course, with our best signee. We're going to go in order from best to worst according to 24/7. And this is Dylan Raiola. I'm not going to spend too much time on Dylan because this isn't the purpose of this video. We already know about Dylan, right? Obviously, played as a true freshman for Nebraska, threw for about 3,000 yards, 70% through the air, had 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Did Dylan Raiola necessarily live up to the hype that he was granted in the offseason? Probably not. But I think a lot of the expectations were too lofty. People that said he was going to be in the Heisman race as a true freshman, that he was going to lead Nebraska to 10 wins. You know, again, that was always too high, right? I told you guys in the offseason that Dylan was going to have some struggles, right? He was going to have some growing pains. It's hard to get used to playing against Big Ten defenses. It's hard to play in the cold when this guy's only played, in Georgia, Arizona, Texas, right? So Dylan Raiola, I thought he got better as the year progressed. Was he necessarily that generational recruit in year one? Probably not, but he's going to have a phenomenal future with Nebraska. So obviously, that's what we got to talk about when it comes to Dylan. Don't want to spend too much time on him because I want to talk about the other guys in this class who maybe didn't play, guys who, shot up expectations. Let's get into the second best player in this 24 class. And this is, of course, Carter Nelson for Nebraska. He had a really interesting year. Really, really interesting year. Obviously, one of the best recruits to come out of the state of Nebraska in a very, very long time. Was a borderline five-star recruit at that tight end spot. But I told you once again in the offseason that he just wasn't big enough to play tight end, right? He's only 230 pounds. He got up to about 235 as the year progressed. You need to be about 250 to play tight end. So he played wide receiver. But, Carter Nelson, this was talked about throughout the year. He was disgruntled. He wanted to play more than what he actually did. He wasn't happy with the coaching staff. He felt like he deserved to play more. And whenever he did get on the field, he did make an impact. Looking at his official stat line, he had just under 100 yards receiving on the year, 1 touchdown. Pretty much all of those receiving yards came in one game against an FCS squad. So Carter Nelson, once again, probably wasn't that generational recruit that we thought he was going to be. Usually when you're a top 50 recruit in America, you want to play as a true freshman. You want to, get on the field a lot more than he did. The fact that he couldn't necessarily beat out some of those wide receivers or some of those tight ends, it tells me, one, maybe he wasn't as good as, the recruiting rankings indicate. Or two, there was some biases with the coaching staff, hint Garrett McGuire, Marcus Satterfield. It could be both at the same time. And it also should be mentioned, like Carter Nelson's an athletic freak. We already know that about him. My concern with Carter Nelson last offseason was he's going from playing the lowest level of Nebraska high school football. He was playing, 8-man football? And now you're transitioning to Big Ten defenses. Like, that's just so hard. You're playing against dudes who are never going to touch a football ever again to playing future NFLers. So I do think he struggled with that transition. He's still going to be a good player. Did he live up to the expectations? Probably not. But again, he's still going to be a really, really good player. Then Nebraska's third-rated recruit. This was the about 200th best player in America, offensive tackle Grant Brix coming out of Iowa. Grant Brix did not play at all for Nebraska this year. I believe he might have played garbage time at some point during the year. But, Grant Brix is a guy who I truly believe in my heart of hearts should be a guard for the Huskers. Watching him on film and I reacted to a high school film. He's really good in the run game. He just really struggles in the pass pro. And that's expected because if you watch him on high school, he only, played at a high school squad that ran the football. He's not used to that pass pro. He's not used to the mechanics. I think he's a better guard. I think that's where they're going to end up moving him. I really like Brix, though. It's not a shock that he didn't play as a true freshman. Obviously, at that O-line spot, you'd have to be a generational recruit to really start there. But I still like where Brix stands. I just truly believe his spot's at guard, and I think he's going to be in the mix to be in that 2 deep next year for the Huskers. So, again, I'd say he lived up to the hype. Again, I didn't expect him to play as a true freshman, so I think he's just fine. He's on pace for where he should be. Roger Gradney is a really interesting one. And this is a guy that I like Roger Gradney as a guy. Again, I have nothing bad to say about. I just never thought he was a 4-star prospect. Again, he was a 4-star according to 24/7 safety coming out of Texas. I believe he was Nebraska's first commit in this 24 class. Roger Gradney, unfortunately, blew out his knee early in the season. He never played in a single game. He actually blew it out before the season. So, Roger Gradney, no longer a safety for the Huskers. I believe they're transitioning to linebacker. I believe that should be his true spot. I don't know if he's a 4-star prospect. It's hard to see. Hopefully these injuries don't come back. Very physical player. I didn't really hear anything about him at all during spring ball. I don't know. Hopefully he can live up to that 4-star rating because, again, he's a very physical player. He has some good athletic upside, but that injury concern is something that to be noted. And again, he did not play once for Nebraska just because he was injured the entire year. Preston Taumua is a guy that I received a lot of questions about. Another 4-star player, number 1 player out of Hawaii, offensive guard for the Huskers. And this is a guy who I think mostly reason he didn't get on the field this year is he was putting on good weight. He came in, a lot of times these offensive linemen, they come in and they're big and they weigh, 330 and you think that's good. But they have a lot of bad weight, right? They have a lot of fat, not necessarily a lot of muscle. So Preston Taumua, he was really working on his body a lot during this year, as did pretty much every single offensive lineman freshman. He is going to be a menace, man. I really like Preston Taumua. I liked him more than Brix coming out of last year's class, and I expect him once again to be on that 2 deep next year. He really likes Lincoln. The only thing about Preston Taumua that I'm always worried about is, can these Hawaii kids really feel at home in Nebraska? Because it's so far away from Hawaii, and it's so different than living by the ocean, living in a tropical paradise, going over to Lincoln, Nebraska, right? Like it's a culture shock, man. A lot of times these for Hawaii players, they just aren't used to it, and they transfer out for a couple years. I think Preston Taumua really likes it here, and I like him as a player. I heard a lot of good things about him during spring ball, fall ball, but again, Nebraska is very hesitant to put out freshmen on this offensive line, and as they should be, right? It's just, this offensive line is getting better as the year progresses. You don't ever want to put out freshmen unless they are exceedingly qualified. So, again, Preston Taumua, you feel good about his future. Jacory Barney, this is an A+, man. It's crazy that he was only a 3-star. I know he's a 4-star according to most sites, but a 3-star only according to 24/7. They screw up with this rating. This dude should have been a 5-star coming out of high school, man. I look back to Jacory Barney, and we know Jacory Barney played. Jacory Barney, he had 55 receptions. He was our receptions leader this year. He's one of the best true freshman receivers in America, 500 receiving yards. Again, Jacory Barney was awesome, and he was one of the few who did play. The thing, and I'm revisiting my thoughts around him. I don't think I had him on my Super 6 last year. The reason why I didn't, it was all about, could he commit to Nebraska? Could he commit to learning the playbook early? Could he be an early enrollee? Could he, I think really, could he continue to take that step that he was taking in high school? He was not playing against the best talent. We saw the flashes there, but he really came to Nebraska with a great mentality. Obviously, was an early enrollee, built that good connection with Dylan Raiola, and man, he shined even more than I thought he was going to. So Jacory Barney is going to be a phenomenal player, and he was Nebraska's second best addition in this class. Looking back on it, that was a huge get. All right. Now let's get to Danny Kaelin. Obviously, you guys see Danny Kaelin no longer with Nebraska. First guy we're going to talk about that transferred out after his first year. Listen, again, Danny Kaelin got screwed by Nebraska. We've already talked about this, right? Like the staff told him that they were not going to recruit Dylan Raiola anymore. They reversed that in December of 2023. They did recruit Dylan Raiola. I don't blame the coaching staff. You got to take a 5-star recruit. But Danny felt some sort of way about that. He felt betrayed by the staff, and he tried to get out of his commitment. He couldn't. It was too late. He said, okay, I'm going to stick it out for 1 year, then transfer. That's exactly what happened. So you wish Danny the best of luck. He didn't play, obviously, for Nebraska, but Nebraska did miss here technically on this recruit. Dae'Vonn Hall, same high school, high 3-star prospect, 4-star according to some recruiting sites, transferring out after his first year. As of releasing this video, we don't know where he's transferring. I'd imagine it's the FCS team. He's not going to land his feet very well. Again, Dae'Vonn Hall, same concern I had with Jacory Barney. Could he acclimate to the college life? Fully commit to the team, learn the playbook, do well in his classes. Jacory Barney did that. Dae'Vonn Hall did not do that. That's why Dae'Vonn Hall did not play, did not get on the field at any point, and he is no longer with this Nebraska football team. Ashton Murphy is a really interesting guy coming out of Elkhorn South. I wasn't like the biggest Ashton Murphy guy. I watched him a lot during his high school days, and this is one of those rare guys that I think everybody forgot about. Like I didn't hear Ashton Murphy's name pop up once in spring ball, fall ball. I think he was dealing with some sort of injury as well. But again, this is a guy ideally want to be a 3 technique for the Huskers. He was never a guy who's going to play right away. Probably won't play next year. But again, if he could just put on weight, man, he could be a solid contributor. I think you take that. I'm coming out of this Omaha area, but did not play. Caleb Benning, guy who got better as the season progressed. He was my favorite in-state player coming out of that 24 class. I watched Caleb Benning a lot at Westside. Again, obviously son of Damon Benning. On the year, let's see what Caleb Benning, let's see what he officially had on the year stat-wise. He had, 4 tackles on the year, obviously not exceedingly great, but again, this guy did play a lot in the bowl game, played as the year progressed. I think he traveled for the Iowa game as well, so I think Caleb Benning's going to have a shot to be in that 2 deep next year at that safety spot. He's never going to play corner. I don't know how high Caleb Benning's ceiling is. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be an All-American type guy, but hopefully he's a good contributor, and he showed that in year 1. So that was a pretty good get for the Huskers. And this was also, it should be noted around Caleb Benning, the staff was on edge. Like for a while, they didn't want to take Caleb Benning in this 24 class. They took him last second. Like they were not recruiting him actively for a very long time. Caleb Benning had no idea where he was going. And I think it was right before Westside won the state title in 2023 that they gave him a committable offer and they said, hey, you can commit now. So they made a good decision taking Caleb. Willis McGahee, high 3-star prospect, very big recruiting win for the Huskers, getting him to flip from Miami. He turned out to be an incredible player. Again, on the year, had a couple sacks, had a forced fumble in there, and most notably against that Colorado game. Really, really like Willis McGahee. One of the few true freshmen who did play for the Huskers. So he's going to probably start at Jack next year for the Big Red. Isaiah McMorris, another Bellevue West guy, another guy I had the exact same questions about. Could Isaiah McMorris commit to the team, commit to the playbook, commit to school? No, he could not. That's why he's leaving. You know what's also funny about Isaiah McMorris? This dude was a 20-year-old true freshman. Like, this dude was old, man. Reclassifying out of control. And I mean, this dude, again, I think he reclassified once or twice. I knew he reclassified at least once. So he was about 20 years old as a true freshman on campus. If you're that old as a true freshman, like, I don't know why Nebraska took him in the first place. Wish him the best of luck at Missouri State, but he was just never going to work out the Huskers. Evan Taylor, corner coming out of North Carolina. We took him right around signing day. Again, there's a lot of true freshman corners who popped for the Huskers this year, and we'll talk about them as this video progresses. Evan Taylor was a guy that literally never came up. Like, I never heard anything about Evan Taylor. Spring ball, fall ball, I heard things about Amare Sanders. I heard things about Donovan Jones. I heard things about Larry Tarver. Heard things about Caleb Benning. Never heard anything about Evan Taylor. So take that for what it's worth. I do really like Evan Taylor as a prospect, 6'2", very physical, good ball skills, good speed. Not sure where he is on this depth chart. I don't think he's on this depth chart at all, but hopefully he can continue to contribute. We'll see what happens there. Gibson Pyle. Really like Gibson Pyle coming out of Texas. He did not play for the Huskers this year, at least not really in an active role. Might have got garbage time snaps. He's a guard. He was an All-American. I like Gibson Pyle. I think he's probably. I think I liked him more than Preston Taumua and Grant Brix. The problem with Gibson Pyle, he got a DUI a couple months ago, man. So, man, you can't do that crap, man. You can't do that, and it makes me angry because we've dealt with this for so long when it comes to football players, volleyball players, man. Like with this culture that Matt Rhule is trying to build, you can't do stuff off the field and expect to succeed. I like Gibson Pyle a lot. I thought he should have been like a very high 4-star prospect. I think he's going to be in that 2 deep for Nebraska next year. I think he was probably the best player who did redshirt, but man, clean up that stuff off the field, my man. Keona Davis. I mean, one of the most hyped up players probably in this recruiting class for the Huskers. They compared him to Ndamukong Suh in the offseason. Did he live up to the Ndamukong Suh? Probably not, right? The stat line wasn't incredible. He did burn his red shirt, had 10 tackles on the year. I think he had 1 sack in there. again, Keona Davis is fine. He's probably going to be our first guy off the bench on this D-line next year. Really like him. And it should be noted, we got him at the last second. He was a long-time Washington commit, decommitted, went over to Nebraska. So, like Keona Davis. Braylen Prude, this is one of those guys where I think might move on in the offseason. I was never a Braylen Prude guy. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Like, he only had, let's go back to his recruiting profile here. I believe he only had 2 offers. It was Nebraska and it was Eastern Illinois and FCS squad. Like, that should show you something. And Evan Cooper, this was an Evan Cooper take. Evan Cooper, our past Nebraska DB's coach, he really liked guys with athletic upside. Guys who were super raw, under-recruited, but had athletic upside. That's what Braylen Prude is. Like, he freak athlete supposedly, right? Runs a 4.3 or something, pretty nuts, right? But just like he was not great at high school. Didn't really hear much about him this year. So hopefully he can like live up to that. I just don't know. And he's one of those guys where you have a cap limit now that you have to implement. I don't know, man. If he doesn't show up in spring ball, who knows? Mario Buford. This fun fact, this photo is not Mario Buford. That's Marquez Buford, 24/7 area here. Mario Buford, heard a lot of good things during fall ball and spring ball about him playing safety and corner. Didn't really necessarily live up to that during the season. He didn't play that much during the season, but another guy who's likely going to be in the mix there at safety next year. He did redshirt. Keelan Smith, people forget about this guy, wide receiver coming out of Missouri. We talk about all the time Quinn Clark being this big target, and we'll get into Quinn Clark. Keelan Smith was a better high school player. I truly believe it. I think this guy should probably be a tight end for Nebraska going forward. I think he is a kind of a hybrid wide receiver and tight end. Big body guy, go up and get jump balls. Not necessarily a good speedster, but he was the Gatorade Missouri Player of the Year. So I like Keelan Smith. He did redshirt. He didn't play. But again, the guy just needs to continue to develop and hopefully he can get on the field there. Maybe at tight end. I like him more at tight end, really. Kahmir Prescott, I mean, again, a really explosive player. I think he was committed to Wisconsin at one point in time. Decommitted, went over to Nebraska. He's explosive, hard hitter, New Jersey boy. I see coming out of PA, but I mean, he's East Coast boy. I like Kahmir Prescott, but again, just another name in this DB room that really, I didn't hear it all during the fall. Redshirted, hopefully he can make an impact. Quinn Clark, we heard some hype around Quinn Clark at the end of fall ball and the end of the season. Obviously, 6'5" guy coming out of Montana. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I did not love Quinn Clark as a prospect during coming out of high school. Like, I didn't love him, right? He was, big body, go up and get jump balls, Husker legacy, but he's not speedy, didn't have great footwork, and I'll tell you right here, I was wrong. I mean, obviously, we haven't seen him catch a ball in a real game, so I can't say I'm wrong just yet. But heard a lot of good things about him. He is very athletic. Hopefully Quinn Clark can be a good player. I just don't know if his future is necessarily at wide receiver. Like another guy where it's just like maybe you put him at tight end or a flex spot. But Quinn Clark hopefully is in this mix next year at wide receiver. But again, really, really high upside there. Mekhi Nelson, very late add in this recruiting class. We got him, we got him in July. He was originally going to go to prep school, then decided to go to Nebraska last second. Listen, good third down back, can do just about everything. Pretty powerful as well. I mean, he third down back, can catch footballs, can block, can juke, he does pretty much everything. We haven't seen it, right? Like, we just haven't seen it. Really didn't hear too much about him, pretty much at all. So hopefully he can play in a running back room. There's going to be a lot of competition. Hopefully he can shine. He did redshirt. Amare Sanders did get on the field as the year progressed. We heard a lot of good stuff about him in fall ball specifically. That's when he really came on the scene. Very lengthy corner with good speed, good upside. I like Amare Sanders. I think he has good ball skills, really good in man coverage. I like him. I think he's going to be a really, really good contributor in this secondary for the Huskers. Another Florida boy, man. Another Florida boy. That was a big recruiting win for this big red squad. He did redshirt. I believe he did redshirt. So he has 4 years left. Vincent Shavers, we finally got to him. I'd say the third best player in this recruiting class for the Huskers. Dylan obviously won, Jacory number 2, Vincent number 3. Vincent, this dude's going to be a star. This guy is going to be incredible for the Huskers. Officially on the year, had 25 tackles, 1 sack, had a big game against Boston College, man. Levante David 2.0, whatever you want to call it, man. Vince Shavers, big win. Did burn his red shirt. Rex Guthrie, I was not a big Rex Guthrie guy coming out of high. I will tell you, again, very I'd say kind of a good speed, hard hitter, hard worker. Didn't hear much about him in fall ball. In a loaded DB room, like, it's going to be interesting to see if he can earn a spot here. I don't know. Like, again, you have a new DB coach in Addison Williams. Is one of those situations where Addison might just say, hey, man, you're not really the top 15 player in this DB room. You might have to leave. I don't know. So he's going to be fine for a spot for sure in the spring ball. Ian Flynt, blocking tight end coming out of Texas. I honestly think Ian Flynt might move to O-line. I honestly think that might happen. That's all he is a blocking tight end. Like, he kind of reminds me of Lindenmeyer in a way. So definitely he's put on some good weight this year. He might get in the mix next year at the tight end spot, really wide open. I wouldn't be shocked if they move him to O-line. I think that honestly is probably going to happen. So mark my words on that one. Larry Tarver. This is my guy. Okay, I hyped this dude up all last offseason. I'm going to freaking do it again this offseason. I love Larry Tarver, bro. This dude, whatever it is, he has it. He has it, man. And I heard a bunch of good stuff about him in spring ball, fall ball. I'm telling you, dude, it's the Larry Tarver breakout season this year. He's going to be absolutely incredible. Checks every single box. Physical corner, Miami boy, speedster. You want a true lockdown man-to-man corner, give yourself some Larry Tarver. He did a red shirt all 4 years left. Eric Ingwerson. I got nothing bad to say about my boy Eric. Hitchcock Elementary School. If you know, you know. Me and Eric used to rip it up on that recess field. But now Eric, redshirt this year for the Huskers, another blocking tight end. There was rumors they might move him to D-line. I'm not sure if that happens or not. But again, just another name there at tight end. Hopefully he can produce. Donovan Jones. Heard some good things about Donovan Jones in the spring. Didn't really hear much in the fall, really at all, until the Boston College game where he kind of came out of nowhere. I'm very familiar with Donovan Jones, obviously coming out of Omaha North, watched him a lot in high school. Very physical guy, has his red shirt remaining. He has 4 years left, I should say. So hopefully, again, just another guy who has experience in the DB room. Hopefully he can, make that a starting role. I honestly think he should be either a nickel or a safety. I don't like him at boundary. I like him at nickel or safety. Hopefully they can move him. Landon Davidson. Now, we're going to get into a run of some offensive linemen here. Landon Davidson did not play, redshirted, not sure his future. I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't in love with the prospect. Xander Rigoli, transferred to Arizona State. So he's gone already. He redshirted. Jake Peters blew out, I believe it blew out his knee, or it was a lower body injury. He blew it out in the spring ball. So he never even really practiced for the Huskers this year. But I actually like Jake Peters a little bit. I thought he was an underrated prospect. Hopefully he can continue to develop, get back in that weight room. And that is it for Nebraska's 2024 recruiting class. Looking back on it, the players who lived up to the hype, the players who necessarily didn't, guys already transferred out. My thoughts on everything. It was a good class, guys. It really, really was. You hit on a lot of big names. Nothing really to cry about. Really, really good class for the Huskers. A lot to be excited about. And there's going to be a lot of redshirted players who pop out next year that we forgot about or didn't really play at all last year. They're going to be really good in 2024. That'll be a video for another day. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts revisiting this 24 recruiting class for Nebraska. What did you think about some of these players, the guys who redshirted, the guys who didn't? Let me know in the comment section. Absolutely want to hear what you have to say. Hit that like button and subscribe if you made this far in the video. This is a 23-minute video. If you made this far, shout out to you, man. Thank you so much. As always, folks, go Grad, go about Rhule. See you in the next one.